There's one skill that separates people who actually change their life from people who stay stuck in the same patterns for years and almost nobody uses it correctly. Accountability. Here's why it matters. The moment someone points out something you did wrong, your brain reacts in under a second before you've consciously decided how to respond. Most people never notice that reaction is running the entire conversation. Most people also assume accountability means one simple move: admit fault, feel bad, move on. That belief is exactly what keeps people stuck for years, replaying the same mistake as punishment instead of using it as information. Real accountability runs on a completely different mechanism than guilt. It's a straightforward transfer of power from whoever caused the problem to whoever wants to fix it. Psychologists who study behavior change call this shifting your locus of control, and it's one of the strongest predictors of whether someone actually changes their life or keeps repeating the same pattern under a new name. Here's what's coming in the next few minutes: what accountability actually means, how it's different from responsibility and from blame, exactly how to use it after you've hurt someone, how it plays out inside relationships, and how kids learn it by watching you. Let's start with what accountability actually is. Picture two people who both lost their job on the same day. The first one spends the drive home building a case. The boss was insecure. The company was a mess. Everyone hated that place anyway. It feels good to think this way. It also means there's nothing to learn, because in that version of the story, the person did nothing wrong. The second one drives home and asks a harder question. Where did I stop showing up the way I know how to? Where did I ignore the warning signs because I didn't want to deal with them? That version is uncomfortable. It's also the only version that changes what happens at the next job. This is the whole mechanism. Blame feels like control because you get to be right, but it isn't control at all. If everything that happens to you is someone else's doing, you have nothing to change and nothing to fix. Accountability hands the wheel back to you. It's less comfortable in the moment and far more useful over time. The core practice comes down to one question. Repeat it in every area of your life that isn't working. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what am I doing or avoiding that keeps producing this? It's a simple question. It's also the one most people avoid because the honest answer usually points at something they don't want to look at. That's what accountability is at its core. Now here's where people get confused because they use it interchangeably with a different word: responsibility. People use these two words like they mean the same thing. They don't. Responsibility is about the job in front of you, regardless of who caused it. A single parent is responsible for raising a child they didn't choose to raise alone. An employee is responsible for finishing a project someone else abandoned. Responsibility looks forward. Accountability looks backward first. It asks what part of that outcome traces back to something you did, said, avoided, or allowed. A clean example: a driver runs a red light and hits another car. The driver they hit is responsible for the aftermath: the insurance calls, the repair shop, the hassle, even though they didn't cause the crash. The driver who ran the light is accountable for causing it. Same event, two different roles. Now apply that to something harder. Say your partner cheats and the relationship ends. You are not accountable for the affair. That was their choice. But you are responsible for how you respond to it afterward. And it's worth asking a further question, carefully. Were there things you avoided seeing, conversations you skipped, boundaries you let slide in the months before it happened? Their choice to break trust is entirely theirs. Any part of avoidance on your end is entirely yours, and it will follow you into the next relationship if you don't look at it. This is the part most people miss. Taking blame for things you didn't do isn't maturity. It's self-punishment wearing a different outfit, and it's as distorted as refusing to own anything at all. The goal is accuracy. Own exactly what's yours, nothing more. A simple way to sort it out: make 2 columns. Column 1. What you did, said, avoided, or allowed. Column 2. What the other person chose, independent of you. Column 1 is yours to work with. Column 2 belongs to them. Responsibility without accountability turns into resentment. You carry the load and you build a case against everyone who put you there. Accountability without responsibility turns into guilt with nowhere to go. You know what's yours and you never act on it. You need both. Own it, then act on it. There's a second word people confuse with accountability just as often, and this one causes even more damage: blame. Blame and accountability can look similar from the outside because both involve pointing at a cause. They work in the opposite directions. Blame wants someone to hurt for what happened. It's satisfied by anger and by being right. It doesn't actually want things to get better, because if the problem gets solved, the story ends, and the story is where the payoff is. Accountability wants to understand what happened and repair it. It asks what needs to change so it doesn't happen again. Here's how to spot the difference in your own speech. Blame sounds like this: you never listen to me. You always do this. Every one of those sentences hands control to the other person. Accountability sounds like this: I felt unheard, and I raised my voice instead of asking to be heard. I noticed the pattern, and I stayed anyway. These sentences give you something to work with immediately, without needing the other person to change first. This doesn't mean the other person is off the hook when they've caused real harm. It means your energy goes toward one thing you actually control, which is your next move. One warning here: some people use accountability language to dodge it. I said something cruel, but you're too sensitive. That's blame dressed up in accountability's words. Real accountability never asks the other person to manage your behavior for you. A quick test for any thought: does it make you more capable of doing something differently, or does it just make you feel justified staying the same? Justification is blame. Capability is accountability. If it's this clear cut and this is useful, there's an obvious question. Why does almost nobody actually practice it? Because it means looking directly at a version of yourself you'd rather not see. The version that was petty or scared and called it something else, or knew better and did it anyway. Blame protects your self-image. It lets you keep believing you're basically good, basically right, and mostly a victim of other people's dysfunction. Accountability threatens that image, so the mind defends it with excuses, with distortion, with reasons why this particular situation is different. For some people, this runs deeper than habit. If admitting fault as a child led to punishment or a parent going cold, the nervous system learned that owning a mistake is dangerous. That wiring shows up as instant defensiveness before any conscious decision gets made. If this is you, it isn't a character flaw. It's a learned response, and a learned response can be unlearned. Start by noticing the defensive spike in your body, the tight chest, the heat in your face, and pause there before you speak. There's also a simpler reason. Most people never watched an adult model this well. They watched adults either collapse into excessive apology or refuse to apologize at all. Almost nobody grew up watching someone say, "I was wrong. Here's what I'll do differently," in a calm, steady way. Without a model, people copy whichever extreme they saw. None of that has to keep repeating. Here's exactly how to take accountability for your own actions, broken into steps you can actually use. Step 1. Name it clearly. Skip mistakes were made. Say exactly what you did. I lied about where I was. I missed the deadline because I didn't manage my time well. Vague language is where avoidance hides. Step 2. Separate the action from your identity. Doing something wrong is not the same as being a bad person. If every mistake feels like proof that you're broken, you'll avoid owning anything just to protect yourself from that verdict. Try this instead. I did something that doesn't match the person I'm trying to be. That leaves room to try again. Step 3. Find the real cause underneath the behavior. Being late again is rarely about traffic. It's usually about how you relate to other people's time. Snapping at your partner is rarely about what they said. It's usually an unmet need that built up and came out sideways. Look one layer under the surface. Step 4. Repair it when you can. Owning something privately isn't enough if someone else was affected. Repair means acknowledging it, apologizing without conditions, and changing the behavior going forward. Words on their own repeat the same pattern in a nicer voice. Step 5. Stop the punishment once the work is done. Beating yourself up after you've named the problem and started repairing it isn't accountability anymore. It just feels productive without requiring anything to actually change. Guilt that never turns into action is just a way of staying stuck. One last point. Accountability isn't a single event you complete once. It's a habit you build over time. The people who seem to have their lives together aren't the ones who never mess up. They're the ones who catch themselves faster and correct course quicker. That's the real skill, speed of recovery. That's the practice on your own. It gets harder and more important once another person is involved. Here's how accountability actually plays out inside a relationship. Relationships that last are built by two people who practice this well. Relationships that repeat the same fight for years are usually missing it from at least one side. Here's what it looks like in a real conflict. Instead of building your rebuttal while your partner is talking, listen for the one piece of what they are saying that's true, even if the rest feels unfair. Find that piece and own it before you defend anything else. You always prioritize work over me might be an exaggeration in the heat of a fight. It might also point at something real. 3 nights this month where you picked one more email over a conversation they tried to start. Own the real part. Don't argue about the word always. If one person in a relationship ever practices accountability, that person ends up carrying the emotional weight of every conflict alone. That's not a partnership. That's one person doing all the work. If you notice you're always the one saying, "You're right, I handled that badly," name the pattern out loud instead of carrying it quietly. On the flip side, if you're struggling to admit fault, understand what that teaches your partner over time. It teaches them that bringing up a problem with you isn't safe because it gets deflected or turned back on them. Eventually, they stop bringing things up. That's not peace. That's a relationship going quiet right before it ends. A useful habit for couples. After a conflict cools down, each person names one thing they do differently without adding a "but you." Not, "I wouldn't have yelled if you hadn't interrupted me." Just, "I wouldn't have yelled." Let each person do their own accounting separately. Everything so far has covered ongoing patterns. Now for the harder moment, the one where you've actually hurt someone and you have to make it right. If you've genuinely hurt someone, whether through a betrayal, cruelty in a moment of anger, or a decision that broke trust, here's what separates a real apology from a performance. Be specific. Skip, "I'm sorry if you were hurt." That sentence shifts the blame onto how they interpreted it. Say what you did and name the impact. "I said something cruel in front of people, and I meant to embarrass you because I was angry." Leave out the justification. You might have real context for why you did it. Save it for later. Adding, "but you also," in the same breath, undoes the apology and turns it into an argument. Let them react without trying to manage it. They might be angrier than you expected or not ready to forgive you. A real apology doesn't come with a deadline for their healing. If you need them to feel better fast so you can stop feeling guilty, the apology was really about you. Change your behavior, not just your words. This is what actually builds trust. Anyone can say the right words once. A different pattern of choices over time is the only proof that it was real. Except that this doesn't guarantee reconciliation. You can do all of this correctly and still lose the relationship. Some harm changes what a relationship can hold. No matter how well you repair it, it's still worth doing right because it's what stops you from repeating the same harm with the next person. One more place that shows up matters more than almost any other because it decides what the next generation carries forward. Kids. Kids don't learn accountability from being told to say sorry. They learn it from watching what adults do when they're wrong. A child who hears a parent say, "I was stressed about something else and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair," is watching accountability in action. That one moment teaches more than 100 lectures. A child who watches a parent deny or deflect learns the opposite lesson just as fast. They learn that people with more power don't have to own their behavior, and that lesson follows them into every relationship where they have less power than the other person. When you correct a child's behavior, the goal is connecting a specific action to a specific consequence in words they understand. You hit your brother because you were angry he took your toy. Being angry is fine. Hitting isn't allowed. Next time, tell me you're angry instead. That teaches the lesson without making the child believe they're a bad kid. The most powerful thing you can do here is let your kids watch you make a mistake and repair it. Not perform perfection in front of them. Show them the real sequence, the mistake, the ownership, the repair, moving on without turning it into a spectacle. That's the whole lesson, and it's only taught by example. Every pattern you've been stuck in has a way out, and it's closer than it feels. It's the next moment where you're tempted to explain why something is someone else's fault. Ask the harder question instead. What's mine here? And what am I going to do about it? Ask that question honestly, over and over, and it stops being something you have to remember to do. It becomes who you are.